Welcome to the Arcology, a Shadowcasters Network show about all things Shadowrun. I'm Mr. Johnson, and today we'll be talking about contacts. Now for the news. There's not really a lot of new Shadowrun news, so I'll just mention again that Hollow Streets has launched. A pretty big deal. I'll read this from the official statement. Hollow Streets is Shadowrun's community content site and drive-through RPG. Do you have a dream Shadowrun book you'd like to write? A plot you'd like to develop? A place in the sixth world you'd like to explore? Hollow Streets lets you put that work on sale for the entire Shadowrun community. With art packs and layout templates to give you the professional look you want, the site will be full of resources that will help you share your creativity with the world of Shadowrun players. Look for Hollow Streets on drive-through RPG. I'll also add that I wrote a Hollow Streets product and put it out there, Allies and Enemies, a book full of stat blocks and contacts and ways to use them. And we actually talked about that in depth in our previous episode of Arcology Live, so I don't think I'll tread over the same ground again. Next bit of news, not Shadowrun related, but it is related to, I guess, me. Hellslayers is a new RPG, a hack and slash of Morkborg inspired by classic Doom and System Shock, coming soon. Written by myself. We've been doing an actual play, which went live on the Rem Alternus Twitch channel. The episodes, I think all 3 or 4 of them now. I want to say 4. I should know. I did them. Anyway, the videos on demand are up and available on twitch.tv/Master of Rem if you want to check it out. And the next live episode will be June 6th at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time. I want to note that the Kickstarter page is now up, so you can go check it out and click on that button to follow it so you can get notifications when the Kickstarter goes live. So also want to add that Ava made a promo video, Ava Rogers of Rem Alternus, and I think we'd just like to show that to you because it turned out pretty good. So if you'll indulge me with sitting through a Hellslayers trailer video, I think we'll pop that up on the screen for you right now.
In the 22nd century, Earth is on its last gasp. The environment is hopelessly polluted, resources have been stripped, the water's poisoned, and the people are at war. Humanity's remnants are on the brink of disaster, rife with corruption, depending on life support systems that may fail at any time, and under assault from aliens and monsters both human and inhuman. This desperate struggle for survival may end very soon, or it may drag on for years. There are some who will not go quietly into the night, some who will stand against the monstrosities that seek to choke us out as we gasp our last breaths. Most of these are hopeless conscripts seeking to avoid greater sentences for their crimes by serving as Hellslayers. And there are those few who volunteer, optimistic or stoic souls seeking to stand in the face of inevitable slaughter and turn back the tide. Good luck and try not to die. Humanity's fate, or even a corporation's bottom line, is at stake. Hellslayers, coming soon to Kickstarter.
And we're back. I hope you enjoyed that. Once again, go to the Kickstarter page for Fragging Unicorns and check out Hellslayers. The Kickstarter campaign page is now up, so you can go and follow that. And we'll be launching once we hit a certain follower number. So yeah, please go and check that out and follow if you can, and share it with people who you think might be interested. Let's move on to our main topic, back to Shadowrun, contacts. They say you are who you know, and that is very true in the world of Shadowrun. Contacts are NPCs that your runner has some sort of a relationship with, usually a transactional relationship. They're there to get you information, provide you with gear, fix your broken Drek, help you with heat, and more. So looking at the contacts under the hood, contacts typically don't have a full stat block or a fully statted out character sheet. Usually don't need that much information about them. There are a few key bits of information you do want about them, though, and that's their name, their archetype, their contact type or types, their connection and loyalty ratings, and a few other details. And let's go over exactly what those are. First of all, name. Everyone's got one. You got to have something to call them by, so I would recommend naming all of your contacts, not just call them by their archetype. Though when you're just making your character, it's okay to just fill in the archetypes and then check with your GM in the first session, or maybe the first time you contact your contact in the during the game. Next, an archetype is just sort of a general description of what they do, what their main occupation is, what sort of service they might provide. And there's a few archetypes provided in the 6th edition core rulebook. Those are bartender, beat cop, fixer, mafia conciliary, mechanic, Mr. Johnson, street doc, and tailsmonger. Generally speaking, those contacts fall into a few different categories as far as what they can do for you. The bartender, the beat cop, the mafia person, likely the Mr. Johnson. They're all probably there for you to give a call when you need some legwork done. If you need some information about a specific thing, you got a job to infiltrate a facility, you want to find out what's been going on, what the big picture is, you might contact someone who might know. Someone like a fixer or Mr. Johnson would be a great person to contact to get in touch with other people. So if you need someone to help you with a certain job, or you need to get in touch with a contact that you don't already have, those are great contacts to talk to who might know people. And then we've got the mechanic, the street doc, and tailsmonger sort of sit in there as they're essentially gear support. They're there to help you get the items, the gear, the modifications that you need, the foci, the reagents, that sort of thing. They can help you identify strange tech you run across as well on the legwork side, but mostly they're there to help you with your stuff, or perhaps provide some repair or medical services. Now, the Sixth World Companion really expands context a lot for the game of Shadowrun. I highly recommend you check that book out. The context chapter is really useful. Adds some really nice depth to what you can do with contacts, and a whole bunch more archetypes. We've got an armorer, an arms dealer, artificer, bounty hunter, chemist, city worker, cleaner, college professor, corporate wage slave, deckmeister, an entertainer, ganger, government official, hitman, ID manufacturer, lawyer, lore keeper, news reporter, pickpocket, Poli Club member, safe house master, sensei, smuggler, soldier, squatter, and store owner. So again, you can see how a lot of these would be useful for acquiring different types of gear or working on them. Like the armor is going to be great for getting your armor mods and armor, and fixing up your guns and mounting them on your vehicles and stuff. The arms dealer is more about getting you weapons, or a lot of them could be useful for fencing as well. So if you end up taking out a bunch of gangers and they dropped a bunch of weapons that you had time to pick up, well, the arms dealer is someone you might go to in order to get a little cash for those. Artificer, it would be like a tailsmonger that is very focused on foci. They might make custom foci for you, or be the person you might sell a focus to. Or maybe they might be a source for an interesting run. They need a certain special reagent. So go ahead and get out there and milk a wyvern for me. But despite this fairly exhaustive list of contact archetypes, um, there is no set list that you have to stick by. Archetypes are just a general 1 to 2 word description of what kind of character that is. So you might have a contact that's a cab driver, or a bus driver, or I don't know, a guitarist in a band. The entertainers on here, so some of them might fit those that are there. But really, any type of character you can think of uh, that would be useful for your character to know, or just interesting, they can be a contact archetype. So the contact archetype doesn't really mean much as far as stats go, or what they can provide or do exactly. They just it sort of narratively describes it for you, so you know what they're for. Something a bit more specific, game mechanics wise, is the contact type. There are a list of specific contact types in the Sixth World Companion, though you are, with your GM's approval, of course, able to make up a different type if you want to. These are a bit more generalized than the archetypes. They're more spheres of influence. So we've got academic, which is sort of tied into academia, universities, published research, that sort of thing. Corporate, which directly relates to the corporations. Criminal, things like gangs, organized crime, criminal enterprises and organizations, that sort of thing. Engineering is going to cover things like your drone support, vehicle mechanics, but also perhaps somebody who might be able to get you explosives if you need them, or really anything that involves dealing with tech. Government is a contact type, which is generally mostly good for legwork, but they can also get you gigs if you don't mind working for the government. Magic contacts deal with awakened things, so the talismongers, the reagent buyers and sellers, maybe free spirits. Matrix is the types of contacts that deal with matrix things, so data havens, fake IDs, info brokers, as well as deckers and technomancers and free sprites and AIs and things like that. Media is going to be things like well, the news reporters, but also on the entertainment side of things, so bands, actors, um, really anything involved with media. Oh, podcasters would fit in there. So next is medical, which is fairly straightforward. It's going to be your street docs and ambulance services, and really anyone who can provide you with medical services and or augmentations and upgrades. Then the last contact type is street. So these are sort of people who are living in sort of the rougher parts of town. This might fall under gang, so they could fall under criminal as well. But street is sort of a general catch-all for well, I think most of the sinless community could fall into that category. Now, all contacts are going to have at least one type. Most contacts will have only one type, and a contact with one type is probably specialized in that particular type of things. They're in more deep. A contact with two types might recommend someone who is kind of spread thin because they're interested in a few different things, or it might represent someone with greater expertise in more than one field. But contacts are typically limited to two contact types. So besides the archetype and contact type and their name, we get into some stats. Instead of coming up with exact attributes and skills and dice pools for things, we have something called connection rating that sort of fills in for that. I do know that the contact archetypes in the core book and the companion do have stats for them, and you can use those if you want, but you don't have to. A lot of times, all you need is a connection rating to refer to. Um, The contact rating can go from both contact and loyalty can go from 1 to 12. All contacts will have a connection rating and a loyalty rating. Their connection rating is how connected they are or how good they are at what they're supposed to be good at. And their loyalty rating is how loyal they are to you, how good your relationship is with them. Generally speaking, with connection rating, 1 to 2 is very small fish. They're not very capable. They're either just getting started or they're washed up. They don't have very many resources. They don't know very many people. They might be able to help you out, but don't expect too much of them. Uh, Connection rating 3 to 4 is someone who's starting to get established or they're very niche. They've got some solid skills. They're going to be very useful in certain very specific circumstances, but generally speaking, not super reliable. Once you get up to connection rating 5 or 6, those are the solid professionals that are on more or less the same tier as the Shadowrunners. So you probably want to have a good connection rating of 5 or 6 with your main contact that gets you the things that you need to get. So if you're a street samurai, you probably want a street doc at a higher connection rating like this. If you're a magician, a talismonger at that level sounds useful. Once you get above level 6, they get pretty big time. Like a 7 through 9 is a solid elite level contact, and 10 or more is big time. We're talking well-known, notorious, or famous figures with lots of resources and reach. Loyalty rating. There is a chart in the Sixth World Companion, which is nice, but I'll just give you how I think about it real quick. Loyalty rating of 1 to 2, just business. They don't really know you very well. They've worked with you a little bit. They'll probably pick up the phone when you call, but they're not too invested in your future or welfare, and they're not too tied in with what you've got going on. A loyalty rating of 3 to 4 is someone who's a significant acquaintance. You've established some sort of a relationship and you've got some history. You mean more to them than just someone who calls them up for stuff every now and again. Once you get to 5 or 6, that's more like a well-established relationship. Perhaps you might even call it a friendship, depending on it. 7 or 8 is going to be a close friend, and 9 or more on loyalty is going to be like you're like family, people who would essentially put themselves at great risk for you. So, with that, you might want to provide some other details, probably starting out initially with their the contact's gender, their metatypes, some notes about their appearance and mannerisms, maybe a preferred meeting spot or place of business, their known associates and faction affiliations. You'll probably start out with like not very much on here for that, but as you interact with the contact more and you learn more about them, you might take down some more notes to flesh them out a little bit more. Eventually, you might even choose to stat them out completely. But again, that's usually not important for most contacts. So, how do you get contacts? It's useful to have contacts, but you can't exactly just go out and buy them like you would gear. There's essentially two main ways to acquire contacts. One of them is before you start playing the game. As a starting character, you get 6 karma times your charisma to spend on contacts. You can buy connection rating for your contacts at a 1-for-1 cost, and the max for that is 8. So, for example, I might spend 10 karma to get a contact that's connection rating and loyalty at both 5. If I wanted a connection rating 3, but loyalty 6, that would cost me 9 karma. If I want a connection rating 1, loyalty 1, that would cost me 2 karma. They're just 1-for-1, and you add them up to determine the karma cost. And yeah, so you've got a charisma of 1, a character with a charisma of 1. You're probably going to have one halfway decent contact, and that's about it. Though, if you're making a face with lots of points into charisma, you'll probably have quite a few more contacts to pick from when you make your character. On top of the free karma, when you make a character, you get 50 bonus karma to spend on basically whatever you want. And you can use this to upgrade or buy your contacts. But again, your connection rating and loyalty for your contacts can't be higher than 8. That's the first way. But yeah, once you've got a character made and you start playing the game, there isn't really like a clear game mechanic on how you get another contact. There isn't like spend X amount of karma or do this thing. So it's not super clear in the rules on how you get more contacts. Though, if you do play or read in the official Shadowrun missions, there's some explicit notes on how you get or upgrade your contacts in that. And that pretty much shows you how to do it, though. You get contacts by meeting people in the game. So people you might interact with, work with. Um, a fairly obvious example might be you call a fixer because you need someone who can hook you up with a some B&E gear that you need for a run. Then when you do business with that person, you should be able to mark them down as a new contact at probably loyalty 1, as long as you work well with them, don't screw them over, maybe follow up with them and get their contact info. And your GM will most likely say, yeah, write them down as a contact, and then ask the GM what their connection rating is. And then you can build them up from there. But yeah, that's basically how it's done. You meet people, you talk to them, you make sure that you make a good impression on them so they don't think you're someone they want to stay the frag away from. And ask ask the GM, or essentially in character ask the person, hey, can I get your contact info, so if I need anything else I know who to call. And that's a good way to start getting new contacts. So when it's time to call in your contacts, there's a few mechanics to talk about there. First of all, are they available when you call? Contacts are people, and some of them are very busy people. It's nice to have contacts with a high connection rating, but there is a drawback to that, because connection rating is a measure of, again, how well connected and well established they are, but it's also going to be a measure of how much they're in demand. So I want to say I got this rule from the missions fac back in fifth edition, and I play with it. I still use it pretty frequently. A good way to check is to roll 2d6 when the character says, "I'm going to call my contact." Ask what the connection rating is. Roll 2d6. If the number is higher than the connection rating, the contact picks up the phone and they're available. If you roll their connection rating or lower, then they're busy doing their own thing and either they're not available at all or at the GM's discretion. Maybe they're not available right then, but they'll call you back in a couple hours if you leave them a message. So that's generally how I run it with that. Next is, do they feel like helping you? Now, just because they're a contact doesn't mean they're going to just do what you say or ask. Generally speaking, the more loyalty you have with them, the more likely they are to want to help you. When this is in question, I will often have my players roll an influence plus charisma bonus, or rather, influence plus charisma test with a bonus based on loyalty added to the dice pool. I usually set the threshold really low, just like one hit or don't glitch, and sure they'll help out. Though, if it's a particularly big ask or if there's a major risk involved, this threshold might be higher, or you might even make an opposed test with connection rating times two against this to set the threshold, make it more variable. But if this test passes, then the contact is willing to do what they can to help the runner for what they asked for. Now we move on to, can they actually help? Do they have what you need? Can they actually do the thing? So for that, you take their connection rating and basically as a GM, you'd ask, is this a particularly appropriate contact for this thing? Like, am I going to an arms dealer to buy a gun? Yes. Am I going to an arms dealer to buy a car? Not so much. Um, so if it's especially appropriate, you essentially bump up their connection rating by one for the purpose of this interaction. If it's more outside of their wheelhouse, like a car from an arms dealer, um, then you reduce their connection rating by one. If it's way outside their wheelhouse, like you want to hire someone to assassinate somebody and you go talk to a stuffer shack clerk that you know, um, it might just be off the table to begin with, no matter what you rule. So, how do you use this connection rating? Well, it depends on what you're using the contact for. If you're trying to acquire gear, it's pretty simple. The availability of the gear must be lower than the connection rating. So, if they're a connection rating 2 contact, they're not going to be able to get you much, but a connection rating 6 or 7 will be able to get you more things, almost everything. If you want that really solid elite super high availability gear like Delta grade cyberware, you might want to shoot for that connection rating 12 street doc. So getting him to answer your phone call and setting an appointment in a reasonable amount of time might be a little tricky. If you're asking your contact for information about something, say legwork, to get the details about a specific individual or a circumstance or a facility, um, or to see if they can, get you a map of something or whatever. Anytime you might just want to make a dice roll to see how well the contact can do something. Take their connection rating and double it, and that's their dice pool. That's why you don't need to worry about stat blocks so much for the context. You don't need to know what their agility plus athletics is or their logic plus engineering. Just double connection rating, and that's the dice pool. That's easy. Something that I like to do as a GM, sort of optional, it's not really in the rules, is I will also add loyalty into this dice pool just to kind of represent a contact trying harder for people they know better. So connection rate or loyalty one adds one extra die. They don't much care one way or the other. If they have the thing, great. If they can pull it off with minimal effort, fine. But otherwise, they don't care so much. But loyalty six, you'd add those extra dice in there to sort of represent they're going to really do what they can to help out their good friend. And that's the basics on how you would use them. Um, some new mechanics were introduced in the Sixth World Companion, which I really like, and that's favors and favor points. So, earning favors with your contact is Fairly easy to do, and you can spend them for some useful things. You earn favor points by using your contact in a good way for what they do without asking for discounts. You can also just buy a favor point by spending a point of karma, but you're limited to one of those per week. If you do jobs that are important to them, even if they didn't hire you to do them, say you've got to contact the Yakuza killed their cousin and they've got a vendetta against the Yakuza, and you do a job that hurts the Yakuza, make sure to tell your contact, hey, we hit the Yakuza last week and really hurt them. So that might get you a favor point with the contact. Saving their hoop, generally helping them out, all good ways to earn favor points. You can lose favor points by negotiating for discounts, or if they're hiring you, negotiating for more pay for something. Um, you can lose favor points by selling important pay data to their competitors, acting against their interest, or doing something that causes them harm. Um, if you happen to mess with the Yakuza and they end up showing up to shoot up your contact's place while you're bragging about taking down the Yakuza, um, even though they might be happy to see the Yakuza brought down a peg, they probably aren't going to be very happy with you leading trouble back to their doorstep. So that might lose you a favorite point. In the past, you really only had the option of like reducing a loyalty, which seems pretty harsh because it can take a lot to raise loyalty. Um, so it's nice to have a somewhat less impactful option to pick as a GM uh, for a consequence for when players do something that would cause them to lose favor with the contact without going right for that loyalty reduction. So you've got these favor points. What good are they? How do you spend them? You could use them for all sorts of different things. There's a list in the Six World Companion. You could have a contact cause a distraction, provide legwork or info for free, provide free medical treatment or repairs, lower your heat after a run, provide access to a safe house, access to gear, get you a loan, get you a quick gig for 2,000 new yen if you need some money, a temporary fake sin, introduce you to another new contact, a supply drop of equipment, or possibly the most useful use for the favor points is using them to improve loyalty. And that brings us to investing in your contacts. So your contacts have a starting connection and loyalty rating, but it doesn't have to stay there. If you want to help your contact improve, if you'd like to have a more connected contact or one that's more loyal to you, the Six World Companion includes some rules for how to do that. Increasing connection rating is generally the harder part because it's a measure again of how connected your contact is and how good they are at what they do. So increasing a contact's connection rating happens a couple ways. First of all is when the GM says so. The GM might just say this contact's connection rating goes up by 1 based on what just happened. Maybe you help them out a bunch on a run or a series of runs. Maybe you've just been doing a lot of business with them, buying a lot of major hardware for them from them, offloading, fencing a bunch of like really unique and valuable gear. Or maybe there's just a thematically appropriate moment. You've just been working with this content for a long time, and as your characters are getting karma, it makes sense for maybe this contact who works closely with you to also improve their connection rating. So this might happen. It's up to the GM to recognize. It's a good idea to remind your GM about this stuff too. They might not be thinking about things like your contact's connection rating so much while they're dealing with all the other details of running Shadowrun. So don't bother them too many times, but if you think something comes up that might affect your contact's connection rating, feel free to bring it up. However, if you want to have this in your control, there is a mechanic for you to say when your contact's connection rating goes up, and it takes time, money, and karma. You have to spend karma equal to their new connection rating, spend a 1 week times their new connection rating, and money based on the new connection rating, which is cheaper at lower connection ratings and goes up to different amounts, different tiers. Once you get up to very high connection rating, it goes up to as high as 10,000 times the new connection rating. So if you want to get your buddy to get up to connection rating 12, and be the power behind the throne, you're going to have to shell out 120,000 new yen, 12 karma, and 3 months of your life. So there's a benefit to this other than just having a contact that's better at doing things for you. When you improve your contact's connection rating, you earn favor points equal to their new connection rating. So um, that's handy as well because they know you and they're happy to kick back a little something to whoever helped them move up the ladder. So that's increasing connection rating. Increasing loyalty is a bit easier. You spend favor points equal to new loyalty, boom, new loyalty is permanently improved. So if you're loyalty 3 and you have 4 favor points lying around, you can spend those and you're now loyalty 4 with that contact. So that's probably what I would mostly be using my favor points for. Honestly, if I'm playing, just the idea of bumping up that loyalty is probably the most attractive use for those favor points. But I like how there's lots of other options. Now, also in the Sixth World Companion, there's like 2 pages in the back of the contacts chapter that I think really add a lot to the game, considering just how small of a section of the book they cover. And that's getting into group contacts. So this would represent a contact that is a group of people, an organization of some kind. Not that you just know, though. Group contacts aren't just for maybe I know somebody in a gang or I know somebody with the mafia. That's something you'd use a normal contact for. A group contact is a group that your character is a part of. You're a member of the group, active in some way, and it's definitely something where you have to put more into it than a typical contact, but you can get some cool stuff out of it. So your group might be a gang or a magical group or a criminal organization, a union, or maybe even just a very serious book club. Their connection rating is based on a few different factors. Their membership, like how many people are in the group, the scope, whether it's like just one block or a city or they're all over a country or global. Their finances, how much money they generally have lying around, how well backed they are. Magic being how many of the group are awakened, and matrix, which is again how about how many of the group are deckers or technomancers or otherwise, very matrix focused. Now, your loyalty in a group contact is not really a measure of how much they like you or that it's a measure of your rank within the group and your obligations in time, effort, and dues. Depending on their loyalty, you have to pay new yen and spend time with the group in order to maintain that. Otherwise, that loyalty goes down and eventually will lead to you not being in the group. Generally speaking, the way you use group contacts comes back to the favor point system. You don't gain or lose favor points as normal with a group contact. However, when you have a group contact, you essentially have access to that group's resources, and how that is representative, how that is represented, is with favor points. You get a number of favor points with that group equal to your loyalty every month you can spend, and that's the main benefit. If you're in a magical group, of course, you get a karma discount on initiation as well. You can overdraw this favor point thing to get up to double your loyalty in the group with additional favor points. However, each time you do this, it will reduce your loyalty by 1. You'll have to work your way back up. I think group context is an interesting way to use groups more in depth when your characters are more deeply involved in factions, and I think it'd be cool to see this used more widely in Shadowrun. It's a nice addition to the book. There's lots of really nice love for contacts in the Sixth World Companion. Even though the contacts chapter is fairly short, it's a very meaty chapter, and I really like it. So I suggest that you check that out. Last thing I want to mention about contacts, we've talked a lot about how you get them, how you improve them, what they can be used for, uh, the other game mechanics things, but also want to mention it's just a good idea to role play with your contacts. Your contacts are people, and they are some of the most important NPCs in your campaign. So hang out with them, spend some time with them. They're people that you know. They can help establish and enrich your Shadowrun game world, help bring it to life, make you more invested, make you feel like your character's more connected and alive and part of the world. Um, Probably want to find out what your contacts want, what their problems are. That can give you clues on how you might get faction points or improve their connection rating and things like that. Now, tips for GMs when using contacts. So, besides what the players can use for their contacts, the contacts are there for you to use as well. I think they're probably their most useful aspect is they're a source of adventure hooks. Contacts often need things done or they get into trouble. And if not, they also know other people who might need help or get into trouble or might need to hire Shadowrunners to do something. So you can use contacts as your main way to introduce plot hooks and adventure ideas, missions offers, things like that to your players. You can also use your contacts to sort of sow plot seeds. So if you got some sort of a big picture thing that's going on, or some events that are occurring in the background, um, and you want to sort of drop hints about it, just have your contacts while they're interacting with the players doing other stuff, just maybe mention things like, yeah, I really heard the ancients have been arming up lately. I wonder what's going on with that. Or uh, did you hear about the blackout in Detroit? That's pretty scary stuff. I heard the whole Matrix went down. Or just drop in little hints and details that sort of flesh out the world some, even if the players never follow up on these leads. um, they can help just sort of fill out the world some. But also, if you've got some sort of bigger reveal down the road and you've dropped in these little plot seeds here and there along the way, once the big thing happens, players can look back over time and see this, and this thing that led up to it, that it's been building for some time, and they think you're a genius. And they're right. So, another use for contacts as the GM is if your contact needs a rescue. So if you want to get your players motivated, um, introduce a new bad guy or a consequence for something they've done, um, have their contact call for help while people are shooting up their place, or have another contact let you know that so and so just got captured, and boom, another instant adventure hook. Now, more cautionary is, as a GM, you might want to occasionally kill off a contact. Now, this is a very big deal. Granted, contacts are people, they live in a dangerous world, and their survival is not guaranteed. So it might make sense to just have contacts drop off and die every now and again. But I would do this very sparingly. Very sparingly. Wantonly killing off PC contacts may make players less willing to engage with contacts because they just feel like, oh, what's the point? And so I think if a contact dies, it should probably be a direct consequence of the PC's choices. So if the player characters screwed over a Johnson, that Johnson might off their fixer that connected them uh, together for that run in retribution. Um, or say if the PC uh, generates too much heat going against the Yakuza, and they get somewhat identified, at least in the shadows. There might be a Yakuza retribution not against them, but against some of the people who work with them. So, so these are some cases where you could introduce killing off a contact. But again, players really don't like it when you kill off their contacts. It's a thing in their character sheet, maybe something they spent karma for. They feel like it's theirs. Um, so just keep that in mind. And as a GM, you're welcome to kill off any NPC you want. They're yours. But I would just caution you to maybe do it once or twice per campaign per player, if at all, when it comes to killing contacts. And when you do, it's a good idea to provide them with like a constellation, like an alternative contact to replace them. So if their arms dealer just got offed in the big gang war that's going on, maybe there's a new arms dealer that reaches out to them and says, "Hey, I can get you stuff. I heard you worked with so and so." And they might end up with the same connection rating or even the same loyalty or something close. That helps salve that a bit. Something else you might want to consider in the dangerous and dystopian world of Shadowrun is that contacts might betray the player characters, screw them over, deal them, sell them out. Generally speaking, players probably hate this more than the idea of killing off their contacts. So I would say keep this to an absolute minimum or maybe not at all. However, it can also be a significant plot moment full of story implications. Um, so I don't know, it might be a good story payoff. I would definitely be especially wary of doing this with any contact that the players have spent a lot of time and karma and Nugan investing in and building up. I think contacts with a low loyalty of like one or two or maybe three, they're a lot more likely to just sell out a player character. Someone who's loyalty 6 or 7 or 8, definitely not going to screw over the players unless the players provided them with a strong reason. So if you've got a character who's got a loyalty 12 significant other and their character cheats on them and they find out about it, well, that might be a case where that high loyalty character might actually choose to screw you over if they get the chance. So just keep that in mind. Contacts betraying the players, it's a tool you can use, but be very careful with that tool. And the last option for using contacts, I just want to mention real briefly because we pretty much covered it in the last episode, is uh, contacts can be brought into a run to participate, like during the operation. That's where you would need an actual stat block. And so I would say check out Allies and Enemies. There's a Shadowrun Hollow Streets product that I wrote specifically with this in mind, with the idea that you would have certain contacts that you might call in to help you with your run and maybe even come with you during a firefight or do a matrix run for you, but also to be as a resource for GMs to have tons and tons of stat blocks. So I'm not going to go too in depth on using contacts for this because we really covered that with the previous episode where we talked about Hollow Streets, and I talked about allies and enemies and how to use that. So we'll just leave that at there and close the book on contacts. Let's move on to the Q&A. I think we had a question from the audience. Hello out there, Tim, and I see Palmer out there too. Good to see you. So Tim Chandler asks, as loyalty goes up, does price go down for pieces of info a contact will offer, or do they do X number for free? So just right as the rules are written, loyalty doesn't really affect those things. Though I think I, as a GM, would probably be willing to take that into account. Use favor points to get them to do certain things for free, not necessarily loyalty. However, I think if you're going to do a negotiation for price with your contact, you should probably be able to add loyalty to your dice pool or maybe get some edge on that for a higher loyalty contact. But yeah, just to answer your question, the short answer is no, really. Nope, loyalty does not affect that. That's for favor points. All right. Just gonna do a quick check to see if there are any other questions. I don't think so. So I think we'll wrap things up today. Thanks everyone for showing up and everyone who's listening out there and watching out there on YouTube. Before we wrap up, I just want to mention that our Arcology podcast has a Patreon. So if you'd like to support the show, please check that out, patreon.com/Arcology podcast. At the $2 level, you get access to exclusive actual play series available as direct download or through private podcast feeds. The Campaigns that are currently out there for you to download and listen to are Lone Star campaign, a Pirates campaign, a Black Star New Year Anarchist campaign, a Lost Vegas campaign, which is Shadowrun Anarchy Ghouls in Las Vegas. At this level, you also get access to a patrons-only Discord server, and at the $5 level, you can sit in on our actual play recording sessions. So with that, we'll wrap this up. Thanks so much for listening, and have a wonderful weekend.